Welcome to the LDN radio show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elseygood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Sam Lebsock, pharmacist Michelle Moser, pharmacist Stephen Dickson.
Have you used 5-HTP B6 and Sammy with LDN, and do you see any issues with this combination for anxiety, depression? Do you avoid St. John's wort with LDN? Yes, no. Yes, we have used 5-HTP B6 Sammy with LDN. There's a wide variety of really good over-the-counter supplements that have a beautiful combination with that. We do not have to avoid St. John's wort with LDN.
I had a shoulder injury related to vaccine administration. When flu vaccine was incorrectly deposited into the tendon rather than the muscle. In this case, it doesn't disperse properly due to the lack of vascularization. Shortly after that, I started to experience widespread muscle pain. I'm thinking that's supposed to say pain, and wondered if it was exaggerated system-wide immune response of having, can LDN help with this? Well, I think so. I think LDN can help with this. I don't have any research to say, but I think it would be worth a try if there was some type of issue and you are having muscle pain. I think it could be worth a try, but I don't have any experience, I would say, in this type of situation.
So the next question then is neuropathic pain, question mark. So neuropathic pain, absolutely LDN. If you've tried everything else, there is absolutely no reason not to try LDN. And in fact, there are lots of presentations on the LDN Research Trust website, especially by Pradip Chopra about chronic regional pain syndrome, which is one of the most difficult types of neuropathic pain to treat. It does seem to be very effective. So yeah.
And in the US right now, low-dose Naltrexone is in phase 2 trials regarding chronic regional pain syndrome. So there's that as well. How about ADHD in adult and at what doses? Absolutely. I mean, if it works in children, why not use it in adults? We would still use typical dosing that we would use for pretty much anything else. You could start anywhere from 0.5 to 1.5, slowly increase the dose, and then top out at the maximum of 4.5 once a day. Not everybody gets to 4.5. And again, that's where working very closely with your medical professionals is going to help you find your happy dose.
Next question, how can LDN change how the gut works? I think MM is Michelle. Thank you. I guess I would add one thing here with how the gut works. First, let's fix their vitamin D, because vitamin D regulates tight junctions. So if you're having gut issues, I think you need to make sure your vitamin D is accurately dosed. And then LDN helps very much with the gut, all types of inflammation. If Michelle wants to chime in here, but it's been studied very well in the gut, Crohn's, IBS. But like I said, I think you need to regulate your tight junctions first.
Yeah, and I think if you go back and you can either listen to Dr. Leonard Weinstock and even Dr. Zielsdorf, go all the way back to Sarah wasn't at 2016, but way back. I mean, we have many hours of lecture on this, but also the book has some fantastic chapters specifically on this and some great pictures as well. So I would say if you want specifics on that, there's the books, and or simply look at the website or go listen to the conferences. And maybe that's, I'm not trying to be short or flip, but honestly, there's so much information there that it's very difficult for us to address all of the points that were very eloquently made by these physicians in this short period of time that we have today.
The next question is, what dose would be good for IBS and IBD? And for those patients on biologicals for IBD, what is the timing between both? So I think we discussed this a little bit earlier on, but really it's very much a kind of suck it and see type, low and slow, see what works for you. If you get side effects from taking LDN orally, then look at sublingual. and it really doesn't really matter about the biologics. It's just about your response. There isn't a direct.
Next question is, I've been taking LDN 4.5 milligram for osteoarthritis for about 5 years. I'm not sure how much it has helped. Do you have any information on the use of LDN in this condition? So again, osteoarthritis tends to be an inflammatory response. It might have an autoimmune component, but it can be a lot of times a situation where there's a lot of overuse, and that's where low-dose naltrexone is going to help reduce inflammation. If you don't think it's helped very much, I wonder what would happen if you stopped taking the medication. I think that could be an abrupt realization of, oh my gosh, it's been working great. So the other thing that I want to address is that I think it's really important that when people are started on low dose naltrexone or even counseled throughout their time is the expectation of how well LDN is going to work. So low dose naltrexone isn't necessarily going to take 100% of your pain away immediately or even within the short term, right? So most of the time, the patient expectation is you get a prescription, you start taking it, it's going to take care of everything 100%. And that's not necessarily always the case, because especially when we're dealing with an osteoarthritis, perhaps there's a food intolerance, and yet you still keep eating that food. You're going to continue to have that inflammatory response. So are you actually taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back every day or every hour or, whatever? There's a lot of other issues that go along with that. So again, it's about working with your medical professionals that really understand low dose naltrexone so that we can guide you and help you on that journey. And I will say, and I'm sure that Sam and Stephen do this as well, every day when we talk to patients who have been taking low dose naltrexone, whether it's been for 2 weeks or 10 years, things come up, new things come up, new information comes forward. And we're like, that would have been fabulous to know way back when. Because honestly, time is the one thing you never get back. And so we want you to feel the best that you can be every single day of your life. And when we get into the weeds, when we really get down to the root issues, why does somebody also all of a sudden have osteoarthritis? Are they gluten intolerant? Is there a food like egg or corn? Perhaps it's dairy. What else is going on? Do they actually have an underlying virus? I don't know. But those are some of the tests that we can look at and we can quantify. We can look at what's growing in the gut. Perhaps that's a contributory situation. Because again, LDN doesn't cure anything. It supports the body's natural mechanisms. And that's what's, to me, the most beautiful part about LDN.
Would LDN help with chronic sinus infections and a dental infection due to an implant rejection? So I guess to say you'd have to remove the implant, I would say first, because if that's causing the infection, the infection's not going to go away until that's gone. But yes, it does help with infections. Like Michelle was just saying, it helps keep the immune system in check. So I would say first you have to deal with the infection and the implant first.
When we should be worrying about LFTs, that's liver function tests with LDN. So we have only ever referred anyone for an LFT when they're in end-stage liver failure. Other than that, because of the doses, it's really irrelevant to most people. There really isn't a concern unless you're in end-stage liver.
Why are so many doctors uneducated regarding low-dose naltrexone? Well, that is the $100,000 question. The bottom line is it's not produced by Big Pharma, right? So it's a medication that we compound. It's a medication, even though we've known about its mechanisms and its application for 40 years or so. I mean, we've been using low dose naltrexone, and Bahari had that epiphany back in 1985. But the reason is because we don't have so much attention out there because number one, it's an inexpensive medication. Number two, it's compounded. That's why we're having seminars like this and why the research trust was founded when it was. 20 plus years ago, and how we've been trying to get the information out on a wide variety of format. And thank God for social media and being able to Zoom like this. I mean, Linda and Stephen are joining us from the UK, which it's late back there. I mean, I'm on the West Coast of the US and it's not even 3 p.m., but I will say that, yes, a lot of doctors are not up on LDN, and a lot of doctors are really down on what they're not up on, but that should not deter anybody, right? So let us help you. Let us help provide resources for you. Use the research trust. There is no other place anywhere where you could go to one website and find so much information. And a lot of times, it doesn't matter what medication we're talking about, and it certainly doesn't matter what indication you're trying to treat. If this is really important to you, that you feel better, and you've spent years feeling awful, and you've been through many providers and you're still not getting anywhere, don't give up. There is hope. There are so many ways to still get the answers that you need and the medications that you require. Don't give up. Let some of us help you. There's a great Facebook page. There's great Instagram. There's immeasurable resources on the LDN Research Trust. Don't give up. You might have to do some education. Your doctor may look at you like a deer in the headlights, like they have no idea what you're talking about. Don't let that deter you. Let that inspire you. Let that then carry you in so that you can find and provide information. And it may not be the first visit that you get what you want. It may be the third or fourth, but let us help you. Let us help you do that.
Can I just jump in as well? I think it's incredible. Like what you're saying there is so inspirational. Having been in a position where in the UK, we have only had GPs to go to get prescriptions for this for such a long time. Now that we have all the other professions prescribing, the number of LDN prescriptions has just gone through the roof, because they're not being as stuck in their ways as you were sort of describing, or they're more open-minded to looking at holistically at the patient. So it's certainly, when we start to get the likes of naturopaths, or we don't really have those, but nurses and pharmacists prescribing, they're far more open to reading the studies and then making their own decision. And that has been a revelation in the last 3 or 4 years. The difference is incredible.
And I know that that's not the case in all countries across the United States. I mean, Linda said that there's over 30 countries represented on this call. And I realize that not even every state in the United States is the same, right? So again, the LDN Research Trust .org website is a phenomenal resource. And like I said, there are over 900 published papers on LDN. I challenge anybody to find another commercially available medication that is that well studied. I haven't seen it.
I'd have to say there are a lot of MDs who are very disappointed with the tools they have to help people with chronic illness. Jill Cattell was one who wrote her story in the first book, whereby they just feel helpless, the medications they have. And when they then study functional medicine and find that there are so many other things, and using LDN as well, Dr. Leonard Weinstock says that they're open-minded, big-brained doctors who look into LDN. But there are some traditionally trained doctors who are prescribing LDN. It's not all functional medicine doctors. These are traditional doctors. But again, it's word of mouth, where saying Dr. Leonard Weinstock, using him as an example, he mixes and he talks to other doctors and he persuades these doctors to prescribe LDN, and it's snowballs, and maybe not as quick as we'd like it to be, but it is, gathering momentum. So that's good. Thank you. Also, we have the LDN book 3 coming out later this year. with new conditions.
That's fabulous news. That is absolutely fabulous news. And I will say that if it hadn't been for the research trust conferences in getting, sometimes as many as 20, 30 providers on a stage throughout a few days, that in itself it's monumental. It's inspirational. It is, it provides so much hope for what's there. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the conferences are available free of charge to view. So go out to the website. And some of the conferences are 2.5 days long. So you may not have a lot of time to sit down all at one time, but it's definitely worth a try. And then, the Research Trust continues to also move along the not only the knowledge of low dose naltrexone, but also the application. I mean, you're looking at LDN master 1, 2, and 3 right here. And yet prior to June, we didn't have that opportunity to really study for that. And a lot of us do it on our own, but sometimes when there's that carrot of a different certificate out there, it's really exciting. It's very exciting. And now we have so many more.
Well, the LDN book 3, we've just been asked what the contents is going to be. We've got an updated history in pharmacology. We've got drug-resistant depression. We've got, the title has changed, but it is to do with the change of cells with viruses. So, for example, it talks about Epstein-Barr, herpes, and of course, the big one, COVID. Also about longevity, mixed connective tissue disease, mold toxicity, the use of LDN in eye conditions, and Professor Angus Dalgleish has written about long COVID and COVID. And we've got a chapter on LDN cancer case studies, and that's really interesting. The testimonials from doctors who have prescribed LDN for cancer and some of the remarkable stories that they have got to share. So it's a really interesting book. Lots of really good information, and as always, packed full of references.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.